Good evening, everybody. Welcome to Chiefs Digest Live Q&A with myself, Matt Derrick. Later on tonight, Nick Jacobs. Assuming I remember to invite him. Occasionally, I forget to send the invitation. So we're going to send the invitation to Nick real quick to make sure that he comes on in. And already, and then of course because this glitch in the software, they all disappear. So I'm going to go back over and hopefully get as many of them as I can. But obviously, hey, a little busy day in Chiefs Kingdom. Chiefs made Watson going to injured reserve. That a tough injury for him. Looks like it's going to be a little while before he is able to get back onto the field. Chiefs brought up Keith Taylor from the practice squad, added him to the 53-man roster, fill that spot vacated by Jaylen Watson. So from a quarterback standpoint, numbers-wise, Chiefs are even out. No move, anything of that nature made with Juju Smith-Schuster. Chiefs are probably only expecting him to miss maybe a game or two, 3 possible. Sounds like the expectation is that he is going to be back sooner than later. So no roster move there. I would certainly expect this to be finally the week, however, that the Chiefs do make a move as practice squad in order to come up. I think that's a much more likely possibility, whether it's Nico Remigio, whether it's Justin Ross, could be 2. We'll see. But I think that now we've probably hit the point where the Chiefs do plan on making some roster moves there, at least with some practice squad elevations, in order to augment the receiver group. And then a couple of old friends returning to the practice squad. Chiefs signed quarterback Chris Oladokun, who has taken the spot vacated by Bailey Zappi, who has signed with the active roster of the Cleveland Browns. Had some questions about that today from folks. I'm going through the comments and I see that Luttrell was with the comment, "Your mileage may vary. It's Tuesday night." Hey, it was only 7:01 tonight for the arrival, so hopefully that went okay. Yeah, Chris Oladokun and Cornell Powell returning to the practice squad. I do think that the Cornell Powell addition is maybe a little bit telling as far as just the free agent market and whether or not the Chiefs feel that there is anybody out there that would be appropriate for them, that would really be able to help them out. I think that sends a pretty strong message that if they're giving that practice squad spot to Cornell Powell, that you're probably closing the door into being interested in anyone like a Hunter Renfrow or a Michael Thomas, anybody who's out there on the free agent list right now. So probably sends a little bit of a message we can interpret, maybe not. I mean, things can always change, certainly down the road. But right now, I mean, at least for I think this week, I don't see the Chiefs making a trade. It always could be possible. I'm sure we'll have some questions about some of the trade targets tonight. Anonymous Mango's here, so I know there's going to be receivers questions, right, Mango? And remember, I kid because I care, and because Nick's not here yet. So, and you never know. I mean, I know, but Nick's probably going to pop up in the comments thread here pretty soon. I am going to go through. I tell you what I will do. I'm going to go through some of the questions because I can see them in the chat over on YouTube. So I tell you what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through maybe a little lightning round, some of the questions that are over there that kind of got posted before time. And what I don't believe I'm going to be able to do real easily is get those questions posted over here on the board. But I tell you what, I was trying to see if there was some, because sometimes those comments do show up eventually. It doesn't look like they are doing it tonight. So like I said, I think that's what I'll do is I'm just going to do a little lightning round with the comments that are over off the YouTube page, some of the questions, and then we'll get into the meat of the questions coming in after 7:02, and especially when Nick gets here. So let's dive in, and I'm just going to read out the questions. Jackson started out with, who do you think would be a better fit for the Chiefs, Deontay Johnson or Cooper Kupp? Johnson seems to have a better long-term outlook, in my opinion. I'm going to agree with you there, Jackson. Yeah, I mean, if you gave me a choice between the two, I think Deontay Johnson would be the upside there, younger receiver. I think there's a little bit more potential. But I think it's interesting to bring those two players because I think, once again, it illustrates the challenge that Brett Veach and his staff are going to have, and that there's some pluses and minuses to any trade, any move that they want to try and make. And Deontay Johnson and Cooper Kupp are pretty good examples. Cooper Kupp, it's been 3 years since his career year, and that was a fantastic year, but he hasn't had anything like it since. I believe he's now missed 16 games in total over the last 3 seasons, so injuries have continued to be a problem. He's 31. He's past his prime. I'm not saying he's washed, anything of that nature. I mean, he's been very productive when he's been available. But, hey, there's a little bit of a concern as far as an injury standpoint. And obviously the Chiefs have had a lot of receivers on the team this year who fit into that category. They took chance with Hollywood, and Hollywood had another injury. I mean, I think those are bad luck. I'm not saying that he's injury prone or anything of that nature, but once again, it's like with the Juju situation. Juju does have the bad knees. So, there's going to be some times maybe some things happen. Hamstrings not necessarily related to the knees, but if you have the philosophy or the belief that, once you get to a certain point in your career that injuries become more prevalent, and especially if there's routine injuries year after year, that's an issue for Cooper Kupp. And I think you have to just go into it acknowledging and understanding you're not getting 2,000-yard Cooper Kupp right now. You're getting, I mean, good question. Are you getting 700, 800-yard Cooper Kupp? I mean, that's the disconnect that I think that, you have to kind of separate the name from what you remember and what you've seen in the past, because the trend of late would tell you, and if you just took the name off of it, you'd look at this and say, okay, this was a really good receiver, past his prime, probably slowing down a little bit, doesn't quite maybe have the skill set that he once had. Injury issues. So does that matter to you? Deontay Johnson, I mean, there's a little red flag there. Obviously, I think when you see a guy that's gone through with a couple of organizations and now would be going towards potentially a third organization, doesn't sound like everything has been all roses in Carolina for him. So wasn't all roses and unicorns and awesome, as I think Patrick Mahomes once said, in Pittsburgh. So hey, and that is once again one of the priorities that Brett Veach and his staff have, is they don't want to interrupt the chemistry of this locker room and disrupt it in any way. So I think both those players, obviously intriguing trade candidates. I think there's pluses and minuses to both of them. I don't think there's a perfect trade candidate out there. It's a really tough thing. So in both of those guys, I mean, Cooper Kupp's got a big cost with him. So, and you take what the Rams would have to absorb in order to fit him under the Chiefs salary cap. I think would be tough to do. So, Greg and Holly, Matt, I hope the Chiefs get into a position to rest some guys at least one of the last 2 regular games with a first round bye for the playoffs. And I mean, I underscore too. I mean, remember, I think this is a huge thing that. Even though it's going to be tough when the Chiefs have that sequence around Christmas Day where they're playing Sunday, Saturday, Wednesday, after that Wednesday game, they've got 10 days off, 11 days off before their season finale. I think having a mini bye week before week 18 is a huge benefit. And it's, especially if the Chiefs end up where they need to play week 18. Maybe to get the number 1 seed or something of that nature. I'd be a little worried if the Chiefs have 1 seed locked up and now all of a sudden, you don't want to play your guys in week 18, but you're also not playing in, the wild card round. Now you're going to have a really long layoff for your starters potentially. I mean, it's probably a good problem to have to a certain degree, but I think that little mini bye week right after Christmas is going to be a huge advantage for the Chiefs. Depending on the way things that play out. So, yeah, you definitely would like to get that number one seed to get the bye, but the Chiefs with the mini bye anyway, I think it's good. I mean, it could end up playing really well into their favor. Mango not asking about wide receivers. Will Najee Johnson be cornerback two now that Jaylen Watson is IR, or will Keith Taylor get a look? I'm expecting Najee Johnson to be the starter. We'll see what happens. Obviously, he was the first one to rotate in there. Andy Reid kind of mentioned him at least as the first guy up this week. I mean, is Josh Williams going to fit in there? Yes. I mean, I think that you may end up seeing some job sharing or at least some even rotation there, where maybe Josh Williams gets some looks. Keith Taylor is a possibility. Chris Roland Wallace is a possibility. Although I think they kind of carved out maybe a different role for Chris Roland Wallace against the 49ers, where you can get three corners onto the field and some dime coverages. So maybe that's a good spot for him. Might be an indication a little bit that Chris Roland Wallace is catching up with Josh Williams. So that might be a situation worth monitoring. But I expect Najee to be the starter. I would not be surprised if they did some rotation with him just because that knee, I mean, let's face it, anytime that you come back from an ACL injury, you are not 100% in year one. I think Najee Johnson would even tell you himself that right now he is not 100% in year one. So I think they're going to want to back off of him a little bit, give him a bit of a respite week in and week out, at least the very beginning. I would expect to get the majority of the work, and maybe he gets 100% of the snaps as cornerback too. I just wouldn't be surprised if some other guys rotate in there. And right now, at least the Chiefs have some confidence in these guys. I have some confidence in Chris Roland Wallace. They do obviously have some questions about Josh Williams, so I think that's why he's maybe not the next guy up right now. He's still got to kind of fight for some spot and playing time there. But if you're the Chiefs, I mean, I think you feel pretty good about the talent. It's just that they do have some questions about if one of these guys can step up and play as well as Jaylen Watson had been, because they had questions about Watson during training camp, just since he had not been able to really get fully unleashed after the offseason surgery for that shoulder. But once he did obviously get to week one, he just improved week by week and was playing really good football. So now they got to hope that one of these other guys can do that, and Nazee's going to get the first shot. So, Mango, your second question, with only four receivers, will we finally see Washington, Ross, or Remigio elevated against the Raiders? I do. I wouldn't even be surprised if there's two. Washington would probably be, I think, under consideration if they want to back off of McCole Hardman's special teams role and give him more offensive snaps. If that's the case, then I think you might see Montrell Washington. If Montrell's elevated, I think that's because they envision him as having a pretty strong role on special teams. Otherwise, I think Remigio and Ross are more likely candidates. Both those guys have been getting increased work with the first team, getting them ready in case they're needed. So they've been getting some work with Mahomes and getting work with the other starters. So I think that's a pretty good sign right there that, those guys are ready for the challenge if given the opportunity. And I think one or both of them will this week. So, we'll have get a better idea in the next couple of days once Chiefs get into practice mode and we can get back in and talk to some the players and coaches, get a feel for kind of how things are going this week. Andy Reid on Monday didn't really want to go that direction yet about which, receivers they might elevate. But I definitely think this week, since we know they don't have Juju, you're going to see somebody. What I'm really interested in is, and Luttrell has this as a follow-up question, a couple on down. Luttrell asking, how many snaps do you think Sky Moore gets on Sunday? I think he's going to get a lot less than he did last week against the 49ers. And trying to remember off the top of my head, I want to say he had like 32, 33 snaps. So let me pull it up and just make sure I'm not making up numbers for y'all. But he had more snaps than I thought. I mean, especially on just the one target. But with the drop again, that was a tough break for Sky, and obviously he got a lot more snaps after Juju goes down. You've got some guys who have to go in there, but yeah, Sky had 33 snaps, one target. That's not enough productivity. If your quarterback's not got the trust, I think at some point, and certainly with the maybe the kind of challenge that Sky's in right now, I mean, I think maybe you do have to give him a little bit of a break and give one of these other guys a chance if they have earned it. Now, we don't get to see practice, all week and everything, so I can't tell you for sure that, Justin Ross and Nico Remigio have earned the playing time. I think based on what I've been told about how they do in practice, I think they have. So I think at some point you got to give them a shot. But when the production's not there, I think you need to give them a chance. And the Chiefs obviously need a spark. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's two. I could be wrong, could be shut out there, but I really think there's a pretty good chance that the Chiefs. I think, like I said, I think that they need to inject some excitement and they need to inject some juice into that lineup right now. So I would seriously be looking at maybe elevating a couple of those guys this week and just give them a chance and see what they've got, because obviously you need to replace Juju, but what is Sky giving you right now that one of these guys maybe could be giving you in his place? Don't know if the Chiefs are there yet, but I think they might be close to giving one of those other guys a chance. Mango, your other question, will we see more of Jaden Hicks against the Raiders? I do think that's another player that's going to be on the increase. And I asked Andy Reid about this on Monday, and I think he gave a pretty detailed answer in talking about it, which is that, they're cognizant of the fact that they don't want these guys hitting rookie walls. They don't want to burn out these rookies. They want to manage their playing time so that, when they get to the postseason, which for, these college kids, you right now, give them another month or so. Once you get to early December, you're getting to the end of a college season. And even if you get to 14 games, well, the Chiefs with where they want to go, they got 6 or 7 more games to play after that. So I think you definitely have seen the Chiefs try and manage their rookie class a little bit to handle their workload and their snaps so that the bulk of their work is going to be in the second half of the season, and that they can, when they do get in there, that they can fly around, they can play at full speed and not be really held back or restricted in any way. So I think there's definitely, hey, Xavier Worthy's had to play more than they wanted. If things worked out, Kingsley Suamatia would have been playing more than they wanted early on. But I think we're going to see more of the rookies. I think they have, for the most part, been able to manage this class the way that they have wanted to, and we're going to see that. So Nick did enter the green room when I was away on another screen, so I'll wait until he gives me the thumbs up before I drag him into this. But I'm getting the thumbs up, so I can go ahead and drag Nick into the conversation now.
That explains why you didn't see the interpretive dance I was doing about getting out of the green room. So,
I did not see the interpretive dance in the green room.
I hate when that happens.
Well, I've been trying to since once again we have all the questions that appeared before I go live disappeared. I'd gone over and was pulling them off of the YouTube page. Mm-hmm. So trying to do a little lightning round, Nick, but I've been very, very slow on the lightning round. So I've probably only got through like 6 questions so far.
We all have our struggles, Matt. We just got to get better each and every day.
That is exactly what the process is. That's what we're doing here. Mm-hmm. Any thoughts that you want to share? Anything on the top of your mind tonight?
Oh, buddy, how much time you got? How much time do you have?
I mean, we scheduled this until 9, Nick. So you got an hour and 40 minutes if you want to.
Well, I don't need that much, but I am going to go on a rant that is going to go longer than 3 minutes. So some people may not like it. Some people might. All right,
everybody. I feel like I should put up like a banner or something,
we don't have to. But what I am going to say is, so people ask a lot about wide receivers, ask a lot of Chiefs wide receiver trade questions. Here's Matt and I have talked about on the 41 is the Mike podcast. Matt has mentioned it many a times, and I have agreed with him, is that what people seem to continue to forget is just because the Chiefs want to trade with somebody or somebody, or fans want the Chiefs to upgrade, doesn't mean the rest of the NFL wants to help make that happen. Like, oh, yeah, sure. You want that last box of Cheerios that I may need? Yeah, sure, take it. Yeah, or yeah, let's do it for this. So the Chiefs had to pay what Matt and I have talked about before. It's called the Chiefs tax. They're going to have to overpay no matter what it is. The Chiefs tax, it isn't fair, but that's what happens whenever you're not, a 500 or below team. When you turn into the new generations, the post-COVID New England Patriots, that's what's going to happen is like people are going to look at it each day on national media. They try to find ways to tear down the Chiefs and make the Chiefs a part of the conversation, but make it in a mean way to where the rest of the audience that doesn't like the Chiefs will watch, and they will watch in like a way to where they're like, yeah, I hate them. Like today, whenever Get Up on ESPN had the conversation about the Ravens and Chiefs and said, can the Ravens beat the Chiefs? And I retweeted the person I saw it from, and they're like, I don't know, maybe they'll play this year, like it wasn't the opening game of the year. But I understand what ESPN's trying to angle, but they wanted to find an angle where they forced the Chiefs into the conversation in a way of how can you topple the almighty Chiefs, just like Rich Eisen had on his podcast on Monday that I put out there today as well, whenever his guy said that Mahomes is not one of the top 10 quarterbacks in the league. He's not playing like it. And then Rich flat out called him a moron. And I thought that was funny whenever I heard it. And he's like, with all respect. But what the guy was trying to angle at was, well, it's he's saying it in a statistical way that's where it's at. That's great. Patrick Mahomes isn't, it's like Kenny Powers saying this in Eastbound and Down when he's like, I'm not trying to be the best at exercising. Okay. Trying to win championships. And so the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, they're not trying to be the best at exercising. Mahomes has literally done everything he needs to get into the Pro Football Hall of Fame. At this point, he's just stacking dollar bills, trying to chase Brady and trying to defeat Brady and trying to be the greatest quarterback of all time. So does Patrick care if he's statistically 1 year the best quarterback? No, because guess what matters at the end of the day? Somebody can argue. People who have to argue that somebody's statistically the best at this or this in terms of numbers, guess what? Those are people that don't win championships. So who cares? The Chiefs have a completely different mindset now, and the organization has a different mindset now that they're, as Kenny Powers would say, they're not trying to be the best at exercising, which means they're not just trying to, win the turnover battle, win third downs, win this, win that, win everything. They don't care. Okay, that isn't what they're about. They're trying to do what they got to do to put themselves in the best position when mid-January to February rolls around, and then they want to take people to church. And they've been able to do it back-to-back years, and they've been to AFC Championship every single year. That's rant one. Rant two is now this other part that I'm going to talk about. Look at Matt just updating away.
I got to update it now.
Yeah, so it's part of the trade and everything to where people are like, hey, they need to go out and get a wide receiver. They need to get this wide receiver, that wide receiver. I'm going to go back to that original point. And what I'm going to say with that is that the thing you have to remember, so I'm going to take Deontay Johnson, for example, right now, and the Carolina Panthers. People say, well, the Panthers are cooked, and people in my mentions today were saying, well, the Panthers aren't going to the championship. Why does it matter? Here's something I want to teach you about the NFL that I had to learn covering the league for over, I don't know how many years now, Matt, but I'm pretty sure 14 now, I think. Yeah. So, Matt, I use numbers and math in my head that worked. I'm very excited because I struggled in the college algebra. But getting back to the point here, with the NFL, and Matt and I have talked about this many times on 40 Minutes of Mike, there are teams that don't know what they're doing. Now, why do they not know what they're doing? Because they have ownership that's not creating a culture. That's like this. For example, let's take Clark Hunt. Whenever I asked Clark Hunt at the press conference last week, I did it on purpose. And I asked him, when you met with Andy 11 years ago in that airport in Philadelphia, do you feel like everything you envisioned and everything you wanted culture-wise, you guys have been able to accomplish? Clark had a vision. He wanted to compete for championships. He wanted to be like the Steelers and Patriots. And guess what? He helped do that. He helped pay the money to make that happen. And so did him and his siblings collectively together. They paid the money to make that happen. And they had a vision. They had what they wanted culture-wise. And guess what? It delivered to where the Chiefs get hated on every single chance on any national media forum that doesn't have Nick Wright on it, who's a fellow Kansas Cityan. and that's what it is. So, I want you to take the Panthers, for example. From things I hear about that organization down there, there's a chance that the Panthers owner is just going to blow it up over and over again. Because guess what? He's got an insane amount of money, and he doesn't care. So, whatever makes him happy, whatever fills him with joy is what he may try to do. So people that work in that front office from time to time, they're going to do whatever makes the owner happy. So if the owner wants to pretend like they're still competing until the trade deadline's over and he gets max dollar from that fan base going in the stands and still believing that there's hope and everything, then that's what they're going to do. So say hypothetically, say the Chiefs maybe want Deontay Johnson. The things the Chiefs have to think about in this regard is, one, how much does it cost from a financial perspective so they can fit in their salary cap? When can they fit it in their salary cap? Do they have to move some money around to make it happen? And then 3, we go back to the Chiefs tax. How much does it cost on a Chiefs tax to get a receiver of that caliber? So you take, and I'm going to go to the Rams to do this part. The other part of it is with the Rams, and Matt, you don't have to change. This is still on the same rant.
I'm not changing it.
Okay, I saw you type, and I was like, let's not do this. So take Cooper Kupp. Like I joked about today, for the low price of a second-round pick, you can get a 31-year-old wide receiver that has 5 ankle injuries since 2022, including 2 high ankle sprains and 1 that required surgery. That can all be yours for the low price of a second-round pick. The Rams put that out. The Rams, leaked that out to their chosen reporter and put that out there clearly, and they're hoping that somebody will bite on that. But they're hoping to get a second-round pick. They're hoping somebody will be delusional enough to give that for the player of Cooper Kupp's previous caliber. But the reason the Rams are doing that is because they don't think he can deliver on the caliber they're paying for anymore. Otherwise, he wouldn't be on the market right now. Otherwise, that wouldn't even be an option. They'd be like, no, we're good. He's a good player. We're good. We don't need to do that. But they're trying to dump salary so that they can get out of that salary cap situation for next year. And that's what a lot of teams who are smart at what they do or have, or trying to do. For example, the New Orleans Saints in a couple weeks, they've got to start their season's more than likely cooked. They've got to start selling off some of those guys, trading some of those guys, and eating cap this year so that they can create cap room next year. So essentially, you're trading for picks. And then the final part of this is what I'm going to say, because I don't want to rant too long and go too much on this one thing. But what I do want to say is, like I talked about on 41's a Mic with Matt Sunday when we did that show, right now, this upcoming draft class, if you talk to people, they're not enamored with a lot past the 3rd round. So that's why teams are wanting 2nd and 3rd round picks, because they want to be able to. That's where the value is at right now, is the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd round. If you actually want to get people who are going to make impact, so teams really probably don't want 4th, 5th, 6th, or 7th round picks. But if they do, they're using those to try to trade up in the 3rd, 4th, the 2nd or 3rd round, maybe even the 4th round, in hopes that maybe somebody drops when draft day rolls around. So for somebody like the Chiefs, who have holes that they're going to need to fill and everything, having that 1st, 2nd, and those 2 3rd round picks, that's kind of big right now for what the draft class is going to be next year, whether they need to use a 3rd to trade up or maintain where they're at. So a lot of teams are willing to part with the 5th, 6th, and 7th rounders because of the potential NIL impact. So from like what I've been told is that, and Brett's talked about it with us on the Zoom as well, and I've heard it from other places, is that with the way NIL is going right now and how often players transfer and everything, they're going to transfer for another opportunity instead of chasing the NFL money sometimes, because they can still make money with NIL deals. So some of those guys, and let's just use it hypothetically, Isaiah Pacheco, the Chiefs got in the 7th round. Maybe hypothetically he's still in college in this hypothetical scenario, and he's heard his draft grade. And he's like, okay, so I could either stay here, transfer from Rutgers, go to a new school, and maybe get more playing time, maybe up my value, maybe get from a 7th to a 4th round grade or whatever grade they have for him. And then, okay, and I can still make this amount of money that I would make going to the NFL, but potentially improve the stock to increase the money. So I think that's where college has started to the impact of college has finally started to bleed into the NFL and what they can get from a cheap talent perspective in some of those day 3 things. And Matt, I will stop the rant at that point, but I do have more on dysfunctional franchises if people need that. So just ask a question at the bottom and you will light that candle yet again.
Oh, we can talk about dysfunctional franchises every single week, because that's one of our most popular topics for both of us. I'll do a mini rant here. I'll go ahead and graphic that up too, so that's how we're doing things now. Here's my mini rant about that because you inspired me, which is that, and I wish I had the time to do this research, and I wish maybe there's somebody else that has the time and can do the research. But what I would love to see is a breakdown of really you have to go back to, I guess, what we're going to go back to maybe the 17 and 18 freshman classes coming into college, because those are the first ones that really got impacted by the COVID years. And, because the 2020 and 2021 seasons were pretty well affected there. I think there's a couple of things that, anecdotally, I think we would learn. And that one is that any college player that that played in 2020 and 2021 probably has shorter prospects in the NFL and probably has not succeeded as much in the NFL because they had development time taken from them. And so one of two things happened to them. Either they came into the league with much less experience and therefore they had a tougher time making it through, or two, they stayed an extra year in college or even an extra 2 years in college than maybe they would have normally. And now, instead of going into the NFL after year 3 at age 21, now they were going into the NFL at maybe age 22 or 23. And maybe, and as a result, hey, if everything had gone perfectly, if you were if your freshman year was 2018, 2020 would have been your third year, you're coming out, you'd have been going into the 21 draft, you would have had 3 years of productivity behind you, you'd be 21, you're at your peak. But maybe you didn't. Maybe you ended up staying in college a couple of years. And now, instead of being a 21-year-old that goes in the third round, now you might be a 22 or 23 or 24-year-old that's going on late day 3, because teams would rather draft players who are younger and have more upside. They don't want, if you got two players that have similar skill set, one's 21 and one's 23, you're going to draft a 21-year-old every single time. And I would just love to see how that's all breaking down. But then you get it to what now we're adding NIL. We are just now kind of clearing out the COVID kind of era. We're kind of just getting to the end of where we've got some 5th and 6th and 7th year players in college football that, we're just kind of now getting through that. But now you got the NIL, and that complicates matters even more, because right now, most NFL teams before NIL, they would be able to say, okay, we know with probably 98% certainty who is going to be available from junior class that's going to declare early and be available in the draft. I would say that's gone down significantly. I don't know where it's down to. It might be as low as 50 or 60%, because they don't know which one of these guys are going to find out that, well, you know what, we really need this player, or they're going to hit the transfer. They can hit the transfer portal, and somebody's going to tell them, somebody's going to pay you $2 million if you hit the portal. There's going to be money available. So there are players who are now sticking in college an extra year because they're getting paid, and they can make a big money without having to stress out and worry about whether they're a first round pick or a third round pick. And let's face it, if you're making $2 million, unless you're a first round pick, it's probably worth it for you to stay in school and make that $2 million before you come out. So, there's less certainty there's less certainty about who's going to be available in these drafts. So right now, if you're a team, you could say with pretty good certainty, hey, is this going to be a good receiver draft or a good running back draft? You really aren't going to know until February, really. About how deep these drafts are going to be until all the players get past their declaration dates in January and everything. You really don't know. What the quality of these draft classes are going to be. It's very unpredictable, and teams hate that. But to your point, it has also dramatically increased the value of day 1 and day 2 picks, to the point where day 3 picks are increasingly meaningless. So you've got two problems here. One, which is that you don't want to give up day 1 and day 2 picks if you don't want to. And secondly, teams that you're trading with don't care about day 3 picks. So yes. And my nutshell problem that the Chiefs are going to have is that, to your point about the Chiefs tax, they got two problems. One, because their second round pick is worthless because most teams view it as a third-round pick because they know it's going to be one of the last 4 picks in the second round. So they know it's going to be a late second-round pick that it might as well be a third. And then 2, you have absolutely, and I'm hearing this more and more, and I firmly believe that this is going to be a factor that even for teams who are out of it, there is some, peer pressure around the league of don't bail out the Chiefs. The Chiefs are in trouble. They've got receiver problems. Don't bail them out. Because if Mahomes and the Chiefs win 3 in a row, what's going to stop them from winning 4 or 5 in a row? Right? I mean, the rest of the league right now, it is one team versus the rest of the league. And this is the way it was with the Patriots, too. Everybody hated the Patriots. Everybody wanted the Patriots to fall down. Teams were not falling all over themselves trying to help out Bill Belichick. So there is absolutely going to be, and that's why I think, I think there's 7 factors that have to fall together for the Chiefs to be able to make a trade. Are you ready for a minute, Nick?
I'm waiting, but also check your text message that I sent you in advance.
Oh, it's entirely possible. So yes.
I just want to help you before
Nick
you start
being
that.
The producer that we all know. So yes, I should sound better now.
No, nailed it. Now you go.
So there we go.
On the right, dude. You are perfect now.
Perfect. Now we're all perfect. Darn it! I forgot to check that.
That's what I'm here for.
I guess we won't be sending this off for Emmy consideration or for a Webby or anything.
Well, depending on what you do in these next 7. What you do in these next 7.
I want
to make sure people could hear him clearly so they can appreciate him.
I don't know if this rant's going to be able to make up for 38 seconds of subpar audio. Okay, so you got 7 factors, I think, on my list. I'm going to put my list up here so I can see it clearly and everything. All right, 1 is flat out that you need team willing to make a trade, because you can say that you want. There you go. Point number 1. You can say for all everything you want in the world. It's like, hey, Rams. I want Cooper Kupp. I want DeMarcus Robinson. Hey, I want Panthers. I want Deontay Johnson. If they're not willing to trade those players, there's no point. So you got to have a dance partner, and part of that, dance partner is that, and I'm going to go ahead and factor a kind of a one A and 1B.
I'll give you the nonverbal thing. No, so go ahead.
All right, that's just 1. I'm going to stick with 1. 1 is, we're going to describe it that way. 1, you have to have a team that is actually in a trade mode. 2, you've got to have a team that's willing to trade with the Chiefs, because there are going to be teams that are in trade mode but have no interest in trading with the Chiefs. The Broncos might go into trade mode. They're not trading with the Kansas City Chiefs. And there's plenty of reporting came out of Las Vegas that Devontae Adams was not going to get traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. Chiefs could have been interested in all they wanted to. Was not going to happen. So those are 2 big factors there. All right, 3, you mentioned salary cap. It's got to be affordable. Chiefs have got to be able to afford that player under the cap or make the moves to fit them under the cap, or the other team's got to take on some salary. 4, it's got to be the draft capital that you're willing to give up. So can't be unrealistic. It's got to be something. And that's why, do you want to give up a 2nd-round pick for a rental player? I have some serious doubts about that, especially if there are other problems like that this person doesn't fit either. Because number 5 is that this person needs to be a scheme fit. They got to be able to fit what you do. Whether that means that they've had some experience in the West Coast offense, Andy Reid's version of the West Coast offense, you name it. They got to fit with what you do, because you can't take a square peg and shove it into a round hole. So there's number 5. Number 6, you got to have the Patrick Mahomes friendliness. It's got to be somebody that Patrick understands. You think can get on the same page with Patrick pretty quickly. Doesn't have to be best buds or anything like that, but be great if Patrick signs off and is like, hey, this is my guy. Sure, let's go do it. Be great. And 7, my last point, Nick. I wasn't sure if we're going to go 3 and 4 or 2 and 5, but point 7 is it's got to be the cultural fit, because the Chiefs that is absolutely a really important point for them in this round, which is that, and it's why they're and frankly, it's why that you see them bringing back a Chris Oladokun and a Cornell Powell and a Kareem Hunt and Juju Smith-Schuster. They're bringing back guys that they're comfortable with, that they know, because they know that none of these guys that they're bringing in are going to disrupt that locker room. They don't want to bring somebody in that a bunch of people are going to hate, and all of a sudden everybody's saying, well, hey, everything was great until this jerk showed up and ruined everything for us, and now we're not having fun anymore. This is one of the best locker rooms I've ever seen. I mean, and certainly in Kansas City, it's the best locker room I've ever seen. I mean, these guys get along, and that's a huge part of doing the work that they want to do to win a Super Bowl. You don't want to bring somebody in that makes you miserable to go to work. So that's the end of my rant, Nick.
Proud of you, Matt. Thought you did really good.
Now we're only about 38 minutes behind schedule. So, but I blame myself.
It's all right, Matt.
there's no one else. There's no one else to blame.
Just make sure you check the starred ones first. The people that paid you straight cash, homie.
There you go. I was going to say a couple more. I want to go from the YouTube page. Let me make sure, because there's like I said, tell you what, that's what we're going to do. We've got some super chats. So I'm going to hit the super chats first. Super chat. Jesus, defensive tackle or defensive end? No running back, Nick. Love the rant. Back. No running back, but I know you still want a running back.
Running back.
I could be convinced of the right running back. But I also am on team defensive end. I still think that even with Minihue coming back, I think they need another defensive end. I think that would be ideal.
Running back. No, if they get a pass rusher, they get a pass rusher. They get a running back, they get a running back. But I'm not going to be upset with anything they do. Like that's where I'm at. I mean, I think a running back that's got speed, and I'm telling you, man, what it would do for that offense in the screen game, especially. And the running back could also be used as a receiver on various points if they got the right amount of speed and they're a solid route runner. I think it gives you a nice little jolt in those 5, 10, 15-yard plays that you're missing without Jerick McKinnon. Kareem does what he can. P. Ryan does what he's got left in that tank. And Carson Steele's just a straight plow ahead type of running back right now that's not going to get the reps to really expand who he's going to be probably till next year. He's just, the experience is going to be the value for him. And there's just not until Pacheco comes back, and Pacheco's more of a straight line guy that's just going to run to the spot and everything. So it'll be a good change of pace if and when he gets healthy. But you just don't have a dynamic runner. And I'm not saying you're going to be able to get that. I'm not guaranteeing that you're going to get that, but I'm saying right now the Chiefs have a certain baseline at running back from a speed perspective. I'm telling you, they need more than that. And if they get more than that, it's going to look really fast. Not 4.2 Xavier Worthy fast, but it's going to look faster than what it is right now. And that would help them on some runs be able to be more explosive. But, I mean, do they need wide receiver? Sure. Do they need running back? Sure. Do they need the left tackle position to get better? Sure. Could they use pass rusher? You bet. So, I mean, I'm not saying there's, hey, they have to do this specifically. I'm just telling you, there's a lot there to happen. And that's why I do want to remind people, when people say, when people always like to say in March or April or May or June, they're like, oh, they don't need any more. They got 3 guys at that spot. Well, they thought they had enough guys at wide receiver, and everybody's clamoring for it. So, you got to remember, you got to stat, as I've said year after year after year, when people make fun of me for my team needs, I put what the team actually needs to be able to weather multiple injuries for that upcoming season and to be able to stack it in a position that's a strength and become a weakness really quickly, as fans have seen literally through 6 weeks at the Chiefs wide receiver spot. So that's what I'm saying. You have to do as much as you can to stack as much as you can at a position, even if it involves cheap draft picks and things of that nature, so you always have somebody behind that is developing that can potentially be in that role. Sometimes it'll work, sometimes it won't. But that's what you got to do to weather a storm, especially for the Chiefs more than a lot of other teams that have to go as deep as they do on their playoff runs.
I went into a NFL Pro Next Gen Stats rabbit hole the other night, Nick.
Was it everything you dreamed it would be?
It was. I mean, I still wish it was more. I mean, I'm still hungry for more. They're giving us some great data these days, but I'm still hungry for more, Nick. But
Right.
I came away with two things, and one, I'm gonna have to admit I was wrong about Derrick Henry. I mean, I thought Derrick Henry would be a great fit for Baltimore because he's built for that team. So it made sense that, hey, you know what? This is probably going to work really well because Derrick Henry's a Baltimore kind of guy and just fits that offense really well. He's got more juice than I gave him credit for because his 15, 20-yard runs as he's having, his speed has been remarkable this year. I mean, I'm surprised at how much speed he's been able to post. And two, you have now won me completely over because I'm going through everything and looking at just the guys, looking at injury histories, looking at money, looking at, teams, looking at fumble history, everything. Tank Bigsby is the only running back that I would go get if I were the Chiefs because that dude is fast as lightning. There's not a lot to dislike. I think he'd be a good fit.
I don't know if people knew that publicly on my feelings, but they do.
No, I just outed your feelings. I apologize. Sorry, Nick. I guess maybe I should keep my mouth closed sometime. I tried to give you credit. I won't give you credit next time. I'll just be an idea pirate and steal your ideas. But
that's given how this week's gone with other things, that's probably not.
Anonymous Mango did pop in with the super chat for the who is the most dysfunctional franchise.
And great news! It will not be a Mango-less Tuesday because he paid for the question.
I got a couple of Mango questions in before you got here, just to.
Yeah, but he knew I wasn't going to answer it in either way.
I mean, I know who my number one is right now.
Go for yours.
I think it's the same as yours.
Go for all yours because I'm gonna do all mine together.
You're gonna do all yours together.
All of them
together. I mean, my number one right now is the Carolina Panthers.
Okay.
Just because, I mean, ownership is a complete and total disaster. The culture there is a complete and total disaster. I feel for Brant Tillis because I think he was hired to come in and try to fix the culture, and I just don't know if it's fixable. I hope the ownership gives him the freedom to make his recommendations and do what needs to be done. But the reality of it is that that the ownership needs to hire good people, get out of the way, and build let's let a strong head coach and a strong general manager come in and rebuild that entire organization top to bottom because it is just an absolute mess. And I mean, if they just walked in and just burned the building down one day, I mean, it would probably be the best thing they could do.
As long as people aren't in it. Yeah.
Not saying no. We're not hurting anybody. We're just saying, forget.
Matt, I've learned you got to clarify with people on social media.
We're not advocating that. We're just saying, you know what? Take all the scouting reports, take everything from HR, just start over. Act like it's an expansion team. You need a new coach, new general manager. You need let Brant Tillis be the VP of everything and get himself his own Mark Donovan to run the business side, and that's what you need.
All right, who are your other teams?
I was going to do I have to go through all 8 right now? Okay.
If you can do it briefly, yes.
See, this is why I need to keep. I need to just eventually do this on a rolling basis and everything because I'm not sure I can always rattle them off. Houston was a permanent member there for a while, but they've moved off the list. So I'm still not quite sure how they pulled it off because I think Jack Easterby is still running around there and causing problems. And is he gone? If he's gone completely, that's probably why everything's working great now.
I'm pretty sure he's.
If he's gone completely, that explains why everything's fixed. Dallas has a kind of
Yeah, he's a former executive VP of football.
That's why. I mean, when they were my number one on my list, I was like, as soon as they get rid of that guy, things are going to get better. And what do you know? Dallas has a permanent spot because Jerry can't stop being Jerry. If it was exactly kind of the situation that you talk about, Nick, which is that there is nobody in the Dallas organization that will tell Jerry Jones that he's wrong about anything.
Well, they technically can't because he's the owner and signs their checks. So, like, they're going to have to go find another place to work if that's the case. And maybe they really like Texas.
But nobody's going to tell him he's wrong. And he's wrong a lot. So,
his kids might tell him. I don't know.
So that's why, hey, until Jerry either just butts out or turns over the team to Steven or sells the team to somebody else, Dallas is going to Dallas.
So. Jerry just loves the attention he gets from the Cowboys. It says they haven't been relevant since Jimmy Johnson, and they're not going.
Or he can clone Jimmy Johnson and rebuild the culture of the organization, but Jerry will never allow something like that to happen.
No, so. It's a tough break, but congrats.
Jimmy had complete control at one point, and Jerry will no longer allow anybody else to have complete control. So,
well, at least he got to experience Super Bowls in his lifetime, thanks to Jimmy.
There you go. There's that. The Jets, semi-permanent members, they just can't get out of their own way. The Browns, oh my God, the Browns have been there for a while, and they're getting closer and closer to number one. I mean, I might have the Browns at number 2 right now, and they're working hard. They're really working hard, but they'll be solidly in the top 2 until Deshaun's gone, and probably a bunch of other people are gone. But once again, the ownership is a complete and total disaster that's totally incapable of having a well-run culture and organization. So, don't know what you can do there. I am. Even with Doug Peterson's brief, success, and there have been other moments of brief success, I think Jacksonville is a terrible organization. The Raiders, obviously, or the Raiders. I can't even put the Broncos in there because even though the Broncos have not been doing great, they're not actually a terrible organization. They do dumb things from time to time on the football field. And they make some dumb decisions, but they do things that, in theory, Sean Payton should work. It was a smart decision. I got no problems with that. They just do dumb things every once in a while. Okay, the Giants, absolutely on the list. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, because I can't have more than 8. The Cardinals, absolutely on the list. And that would be my 8 right now. I mean, I can't really throw anybody else in there. There's some others that, up and down. New Orleans does some dumb things from time to time, but Mickey Loomis is not a moron, and they've got great ownership. So, I mean, when they get the right combination in New Orleans, things are going to be fine again. They just probably need a better coach and need a quarterback. But that's my 8.
All right, I'm going to start on mine, try to get through them briefly as I try to do this from producer mode, and I'd be telling an analyst how quickly I need them to go on this. So I'm going to go into power rankings in order. The worst one to me is the Carolina Panthers because of their ownership. So until the ownership allows Brant Tillis to do whatever he wants there and be able to try to create a championship culture and try to recreate what Kansas City Chiefs did, which is, in my opinion, a big reason why he's probably hired, until he gets the opportunity to basically blow that whole thing up and start from scratch and the owner gets out of his way for 4 to 5 years, and if Brant's the right hire to do that, then the Panthers will finally take off. But right now, you've got a general manager that was a part of the process last year that you already blew up, and then you got a head coach that only really had 1 year being a successful coordinator, and then you kind of put him in there. And the sad thing is Steve Wilkes, who they originally fired, was actually doing really well as head coach, and they burned that thing to the ground and started from scratch. And now they're going to be picking in the top 5 back-to-back years. So that's one. Number 2, we are going to go with longevity. And for me, that is unfortunately the New York Giants at this point. Ever since they moved on from Tom Coughlin, they had the 1 neat year, and that's awesome, or maybe 2 years at best. But they keep trying to recreate the Patriot style and the Patriot way. But you know what the big problem is with that? You don't have Bill Belichick running it. But hey, guess what? There's this guy out there right now. There's 2 guys out there. There's this guy named Bill Belichick that's free. That can do it and knows how to do it, has a blueprint to do it, could do it in the New York market. And then you have this other guy named Mike Vrabel that's available right now that also understands it and has been to AFC championships before. So if you're the Giants, go hire one of those guys. If you're the Panthers, go hire one of those guys. But if Brant Tillis is the one, in charge, then I think Brant may go in a different direction, or he may like those guys. I don't know. We'll find out. Now I'm going over to the AFC side. We'll see in the next couple of years what Jerry Mayo is or isn't able to do. But let's be honest, the Kraft family is trying to prove that Bill Belichick wasn't the masterminds behind it. The Kraft family was. So that's what they're trying to do right now. We'll see how it goes with Jared Mayo, what he's able to do, if he's able to turn around with Elliott Wolf or not. I don't know. We'll see. So that one's pending right now. But whenever you move on from the greatest coach that you've ever had in your franchise and brought you the success that he did, you better have a good backup plan ready to go. And right now, it's they got a lot of work ahead of them. Tennessee Titans. The reason I have them in here, and we'll see down the road here, but when the Tennessee Titans are willing to move on from Mike Vrabel, because I don't know why, but they were willing to. Whenever the previous GMs were the one who traded A.J. Brown and drafted Will Levis and did all these things, that's an organizational problem more so than it is a Mike Vrabel problem. And when they watch Mike Vrabel thrive somewhere else and wave to him from the other sidelines from time to time because he's having success and they're still trotting out Will Levis as their champion, then, they deserve what they get on that one. So good. And here's your winning lottery numbers. Good luck to you on that one. Cleveland Browns, like you said, when a franchise is willing to tether itself to a contract like Deshaun Watson's, given the situation he was under at that point.
This is the worst contract in the history of the NFL.
Yeah, and they were willing to do it. So
the dumbest contract in the history of the NFL, too.
So they were willing to do it still. And they traded a lot of draft assets for that, and it tore that locker room apart. That locker room's a mess right now, and it's going to continue to be a mess. And here's the fun fact. They're still on the hook for all that after him coming off the Achilles injury that he sustained this past week. So I don't know how they're wiggling out of that one unless there's fine print in the contract that nobody knows about and will magically find out about later. But, I mean, like, he's going to account for, like, almost 62 or $70 million of their cap next year. And he's going to be coming off an Achilles injury, so that's not going to work out well. So good luck on that one. Let's see. Is there anybody else at this point? I think those are the Jets as a whole. That's a whole thing. That's what I call the ultimate vibe of failure. They chased trying to get Aaron Rodgers to try to turn their culture around, and they thought that he was going to be the thing that was going to get them back to the Rex Ryan winning ways. They found out that, well, there's a reason the Packers were willing to trade him, but played hardball to trade him, and now they're finding out that he is playing at the age that he actually is. And that's probably not going to work. And after this year, they're going to have to restart that party, and they're going to have to try to figure out how to get somebody who's not named Bill Belichick there, because Bill Belichick, whenever he says about the owner on the Manning cast, when he talks about the owner the way he did on the Manning cast, that is, you can scratch that one off the list. You don't have to worry about that. So, yeah, the Jets, they hire a lot of people that don't know what they're doing, and they're good at it.
They're good.
A franchise that I think is going, we'll see, but a franchise that is at that teetering point right now is the Cincinnati Bengals, because now their general manager and their head coach, they hit on everything there for a couple of years, and they got that window and they got them to spend money there for a while. But now they weren't willing to spend the money on Jamar Chase. They weren't willing to spend the money on T. Higgins. They weren't willing to spend the money on Trey Hendrickson. They weren't willing to spend the money on player here and a player there. And it cost them their defense that doesn't really exist as much anymore as it did. And you can tell by some of the effort some of the players are given, they're like, I'm not going to push myself for this ownership if they're not going to pay the proper compensation. So, you've got that's when we talk about culture problems and stuff like that. That's not on the players. That's just like the players understand that it may not be within their best interest to, play through a hamstring injury in a contract year because the owner's not going to take care of you.
And I think you make a great point about the Bengals being maybe a bubbling under team to watch, because, and this will be the canary in the coal mine for me, because you can almost see it coming. Whenever you see teams that, the beginning of the end is starting to come, they do something just monumentally stupid trying to right the ship because they think that's the one move that'll fix everything. With the struggles that the Bengals are having this year, you just know in the next 15 months, they're going to fire Lou Anarumo because they're going to say, the defense stinks. Lou's lost it. No, Lou is a great coordinator and he does a great job when you give him some talent. But when you let all his talent go, you're going to end up with the 31st best defense in the league. That's just the reality of it. And then they're going to fire Lou, and then they're going to find out, you know what? There's something worse than having the 31st best defense in the league. Having the 32nd best defense in the league.
And then the one that's getting ready to be taken off the list is the Las Vegas Raiders. Now, the reason that is the case is because Tom Brady's now a part of the ownership group.
You have much more faith in Tom than I do.
Why wouldn't I have faith in a guy who's won as many Super Bowls as he has?
Well, sometimes it just doesn't work.
All right. Well,
sometimes it doesn't work.
We will mark this day down and we'll see where it goes.
Oh, I mean, hey, for everything that, you know, I'll hang my hat. Last week, you know, Nick, I picked the Chiefs to beat the 49ers 27-17. I was darn close. Mm-hmm. But you know what else I also did? I once said that I would take Will Levis over CJ Stroud. So, you know, I'm not perfect.
I never said you were.
But I will say that is one reason why. I mean, and I could definitely, I mean, the Titans are my number 9. I mean, Jacksonville I have on there mostly because I just don't think that you're ever going to have a successful franchise playing 2 of your games overseas every single year for financial reasons. And when your owner is crazy. But the Titans did something monumentally stupid, which is that when you have one of the best coaches in the league and it's either me or him with somebody else in your organization, you choose the better one. You don't say, hey, let's get rid of the coach who somehow seems let's get rid of the coach that took Marcus Mariota to the playoffs in favor of, you know, keeping the peace with somebody else. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But all right. Well, now I've really derailed the show, but I'm glad we did. Nope. I accidentally clicked Nick off the screen.
Well, guys, that apparently is my time.
This one, just from a production standpoint, is definitely not going to Smithsonian this time. But that's okay. I hope everybody's still having a good time.
Yeah, you think you still got 2 other paid questions? You might have one. Sorry, you might have one.
Not seeing them. I did acknowledge Brenda's super sticker. Thank you, Brenda.
Okay, then yeah, you're good.
Yes, I greatly appreciate that, Brenda. Thank you. And I was trying to remember I thought Brenda may have a question over on the YouTube that I was trying to work through over here, but I don't see it yet. I'm so laughing at some of the comments over there. All right, Brandon, what player can add the most to this team, offense or defense? That's a big question, Brandon. And I think we're talking about from a trade standpoint. Or maybe you want to go with Charles Omenihu from just, you know, coming back and being a healthy standpoint. I don't know. What do you think, Nick? What player can add the most to this team?
Under their current situation right now and their current thing, it would either be Charles Omenihu or if Hollywood Brown can come back. One of those 2 would add the most to this roster that's currently on the roster. Outside of this roster, I'll let you know when they arrive.
Jesus had a funny question. I wish I could put this over on the screen. Do you guys do anything funny to get ready for the Raiders?
No.
I mean, we usually just wait for the Raiders to do funny things and then point it out. I mean, that's kind of my philosophy. And Nick's really good at that. So that's I think that's all you have to do. Infopocalypse. Do you see Tampa Bay and San Francisco as now competing with KC in the wide receiver trade market? I mean, it's a good question because I don't know where both those teams' mindsets are. You know, is it because if I'm both those teams, I might be on the fence. I mean, if I'm both those teams, I think I need to win the next 2 games for me to feel like, hey, well, okay, wait a minute, this team's worth saving. This team is worth going out and trying to put it together, because both of them are probably in a spot where you might just say, you know what, it's not our year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like this past week the Niners were wanting to use the Chiefs game as their evaluation of where they're at. And I think they got the reality that their roster is slower. Their roster doesn't have as much as it did. They'll get, and people forget, they'll get Jawan Jennings back. He was hurt with a hip injury in that game, so they may at least get him back. And Christian McCaffrey, supposedly they're going to try to get back in a couple weeks. So I mean, I would assume they're just going to try to weather the storm and then try to bring back the guys they have in them. But I mean, I don't. Even if they trade for somebody, I don't think it's gonna matter for the Niners, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm kind of. That's what I say. I think I'm in that philosophy. And if I'm Tampa Bay, I'm kind of in this. I don't know. I mean, it depends maybe a little bit about just how bad Evans is going to be. I mean, if you're losing both Evans and Godwin for obviously extended periods of time, you know, one of them's down for sure. But if you're going to lose Evans for an extended period of time too.
Yeah, Evans is out for 4 weeks at least right now. And then Godwin's gone for the year.
Yeah.
So
I mean,
with a broken ankle.
That case, yeah, to me, it would be really, really hard for me to justify now going out and saying, okay, now let's get rid of some of our trade assets and I mean, and every team is different. I mean, we saw Odell Beckham come in midseason for the Rams and be able to make a difference. I mean, that was Odell Beckham. I don't care if he's coming off an ACL or not. He was the best receiver in the NFL. He was 28 years old. So I understand him going in and making a difference with the Rams. I'll tell you what, I mean, I was against the Chiefs going out and signing Odell Beckham at that point because I just didn't think that he could make as big of a difference in Kansas City as he could with some other teams, because I think that the Kansas City offense is more difficult and complicated to pick up than the Rams and maybe what some other teams are doing. So I don't know. I feel like if I'm Tampa, I'm that's the tricky one. I mean, but I just feel like that they could be in the trade market. I mean, I can't rule it out. And there's obviously some other teams. I mean, New Orleans is trying to salvage what they've got left, and maybe I know you're not convinced that they should, but they're trying to.
In the next week or two, New Orleans is going to have to accept that they're going to have to start dumping cap.
All right, now we're getting back to the questions are on here, and we are only 63 minutes behind. So how long is Jaylen Watson expected to miss compared to some of the other players suffering the same injury? And do you see Williams taking the next step, or CRW playing a bigger role? I mean, the Jaylen Watson injury, I don't know. I think it's going to be significantly different from others, you know, with similar injuries, but it certainly seems like you're going to be playing a big chunk of the season, if not the entire season, without Jaylen Watson.
Yeah, to answer this quickly, until they have the surgery, I don't think even they know definitively what will or won't happen. And until they can start rehabbing, I don't think they definitively know what will or won't happen. So I would just mentally prepare for anything that's after the playoffs in the next season. And then the other part of it, we'll see what Joshua Williams does with the opportunity. That'll be up to him if he can do the physical press coverage if they put him in that role. And Chris Roland Wallace showed that he's got promise, and I'm sure he will get more snaps along the way. Next question. This is how we're lightning round to get back up to par, Matt.
Is that how we're going to do it? Yeah. Hey, I'm going to throw in Najee Johnson. I mean, Nazee's going to probably get the first shot up, but hey, Zeus, have you ever gone to the Raiders Stadium? I have been to Allegiant Stadium. It's a nice place. I can't compare it to Los Angeles, unfortunately, because I have not been there yet. And I hear that is just absolutely the best stadium in the league. But Legion's pretty nice. It's steep, but I like it.
Okay.
That's all I got to say, I think.
No, next question.
Entopocalypse. Is it possible to keep Trey and Bolton by cutting Tooney this offseason?
We've talked about this many a times on here at this point. To keep Trey and Creed, you're going to have to move on from Tooney. If they elect to let Trey test free agency, then sure, they can still keep Bolton no matter what. But I think there's a certain – I need you to think of it like a certain allotment on each side of the football. So like there's a certain amount of allotment they want to put in terms of guys that make over 15 or 20 million per year on one side of the ball, and then on the other side. So you're always kind of moving a piece here and there. So that's what you need to do. Good. That's my advice. In each time you're curious about something like that, go look it over the cap, see the people that are making over 15 to 20 million. And then in each draft year, is there somebody that magically gets drafted at their position when they're getting ready to hit free agency the following year? Normally answers your question. The fact that Chiefs built an entire offensive line this offseason behind their current thing should already answer that for you.
The Chiefs drafting 3 offensive linemen sent a pretty strong message about what they thought was the possibilities and what could happen. So
and then sign the undrafted free agent. So technically you got 4 rookies that you're going to be inserting here in the next 2 years to replace some of your starters.
Yes. Dez, who should we expect to take over the Juju Rashid role without a trade happening? Well, Juju is out.
I have no idea. I'm going to find out this week when I watch the game. Honestly, I have no idea. We'll find out this week when I watch the game.
I mean, technically, because you're just talking about who's going to play it. I mean,
because Juju was in Rice's role, and
so
you and I haven't got to see. There's guys that were on third team in spots, sure, but I mean, I don't know, man. We'll find out this weekend. Like, I wish I could tell you this is what's going to happen this week. I don't know. Like, I think they're even trying to probably figure that out this week in their coaches' meetings.
Yeah, I think you're absolutely right, and it. I mean, obviously there's limited options. I mean, it's not going to be Xavier Worthy. They're going to keep Xavier doing what he's doing, and I think they're going to keep McColl doing what he's doing, which is basically special teams and job sharing with Xavier in the Z role. But who's going to play the X? Ooh, well, it could be Justin Watson. It could be. Maybe they're going to elevate Nico Remigio. Maybe they'll elevate Justin Ross and rotate 3 or 4 different guys through there. I mean, that would not be unchief-like. It wouldn't be exactly, I think, obviously their first option. But then again, I think we're also down to we're not on plan B or C yet here, Nick. We're on plan like E and F. So we're no longer on just the best case scenario. Kevin, can the Chiefs move Hicks over to corner?
He's a safety.
I mean, if you're going to move a safety over to corner, I'd say Chamari Connor is your best bet.
Yeah, they're not moving Hicks. He's a safety,
and I think he's going to be a really good safety.
Yep.
So let's invest in that. Cody, what did Andy do to make the football gods mad this year? I'm going to say this, Nick, because you know what? Yes, the Chiefs have had more injuries than they've had in maybe recent years. And I'm not trying to curse anything, and you can't blame this on me because I'm knocking on wood right here, Nick. Your quarterback is just fine. So doesn't matter if anybody else gets hurt as long as your quarterback's okay.
Ooh, I really wish you hadn't said that.
I said I knocked on wood, so I did everything. I mean, I'll throw salt over my shoulder, too, if I have to.
It doesn't matter. People can clip it to where it'll look like you said it without knocking on it.
Hey, Seuss, any interest in OBJ?
No.
I was just talking about that. Yes. I mean, if he were incredibly affordably cheap,
how old is he now? How many?
He's like 31.
He hasn't retired yet. Seriously. Yeah, he's gonna be 32 in a month. That's over. It's done. Man, we were this is why
he's consistently hurt. And he's like hurt right now. So
yeah, he has been. He's just come off PUP. I'm pretty sure because he was hurt yet again. Oh, I know. I'm sorry. It's just because I'm just hearing his name each time. I'm like, man, I remember talking about him coming on college when I was on the Chiefs show at the time with Mitch Holtis on Chiefs Live, and I brought him up and talked about how amazing he was out of LSU, and I'm like, dude, that was 12 years ago.
He is incredibly cheap. He's got a bunch of bonuses that he will probably not hit. I'd give up a conditional 7th, but Yes, Cody, I'm sorry that I had the wrong mic on. That was my fault. Nick finally saved the day. If I had seen your comment at 7:07, Cody, we could have saved 31 minutes, I think, of poor audio. So thank you. I appreciate that. George, why did the Chiefs keep going with Jawan Taylor? He's the most penalized player again this year. I mean, short answer, Nick, he's your best right tackle.
Yeah.
Isn't that?
Yeah, hold on here. I just want to have the number accurate when I say it.
About whether or not he is the most penalized player this year?
No, that's probably true. It's because you're paying him $24.7 million.
Well, that's the other reason. Yes.
He's going to play every single snap unless he gets hurt this year and next year. Then after that, we'll see, as long as they don't have to move any of his money around. And then maybe Ethan Driscoll takes over that spot. But Jawan Taylor is going to play at right tackle, and he is a professional, and it's up to him and Andy Heck and Corey Matei to fix it and get through it. That's what they all get paid for. That's why they get paid the money they do. So it's up to those three to get it done. Just same with Kingsley, same with Wanye.
More valid point I cannot point out. Making a lot of money, it is your best right tackle. So, Jackson, has there been any updates on Hollywood's injury timeline to return? He seems optimistic on social media. I mean, I think the optimism at this point would be that if he does return in time for the playoffs, I mean, that would be if he returned in time for January, the Chiefs would be absolutely ecstatic. But we are very early in the recovery process. It does obviously, I mean, the limited things that we've heard obviously seem to be pretty good, Nick, but there is definitely a consistent timeline with recovery from that kind of thing, and it definitely also is not something that you want to rush, and especially if I think you're Hollywood, you don't want to have to go through this again. So, especially because you're going to be trying to get a contract in March. You don't want to be trying to get a contract if you come off another surgery. So, which Chiefs staff member will be picking up Chris Olave from the airport on November 5th? Well, I don't think Chris Olave's coming.
No, I don't think the Saints are. Here's what I'm going to say about this and the questions we're starting to get about Garrett Wilson since it got put out that teams called about him. Yes, teams probably called about him, but here's the thing. The Saints general manager and the Jets general manager don't think they're getting fired after this year. Whether they find out otherwise or not in January, they're going to hold on to those players because they think they are a part of their future, and they think they are a part of the future. So until they find out that they are not a part of the future, as Joe Douglas and I can't remember the Saints
Mickey Loomis.
Still Mickey? Okay.
Still Mickey.
Well, yeah. Until they find out that they do not have a future, they are not going to be getting rid of their young players that are still pretty cheap for the most part.
Yeah.
But on Madden, you can do it all day long. I
am 100% convinced that the Saints are definitely not letting go of Chris Olave. They're all in on that. And honestly, I mean, signing Alvin Kamara to an extension just shows you that they're not giving up on this team as far as their window goes. So,
but there are players I do think that they would be willing to move cap wise to get some space in the weeks ahead.
There you go. Brandon, after the run play where Pat put Mustafa on his behind, what statement did that play make?
I don't think it really. I mean, yes, I know national media ran it over and over and over again, but I think he was letting up on the play because he realized that he didn't want to get a penalty for it, and Pat was lowering the shoulder because he thought he was getting ready to take a big hit, and so between the two of them, Pat maintained what he had, and I think the other guy let up, and it just turned into what it turned into.
I thought it looked like a much bigger hit than it appeared.
Right.
And obviously neither player was particularly, taken back by it. I mean, it wasn't like the earlier play when Mustafa just absolutely obliterated Xavier Worthy.
And Kareem Hunt before that with a really good
Kareem Hunt too. So, yeah, I mean, after seeing those two hits, he had to pull up a little bit or just not be trying to take out Mahomes and get a penalty, because after those two hits, there's no way he's the one that's absorbing the contact from Patrick on that one. Although I will say between that and the run play, and I don't know if, I don't know necessarily, I will never say that NFL players are necessarily indicative of the comments that you see on social media, but I actually saw a former NFL player talking about that, Mahomes' run, and just saying, hey, why would you ever let up on Mahomes? I mean, it's, if he's near the sideline or if it ever looks like he's trying to give himself up and everything like that, you don't necessarily know that he is. So, why wouldn't you just go ahead and hit him in that situation on the sideline? And I'm not sure I'm not sure that point actually set the situation, because I don't know of any point that Mahomes actually was going out of bounds or looked like he was going out of bounds. But there could be a takeaway from this, which is that, you know what, if you get a chance to hit Patrick Mahomes, you probably just should. And you get a 15-yard penalty, just make sure it was worth it. And I mean, I don't like that. I don't want to. I don't want to be saying that, about the greatest player in the league right now. But it's not dumb football, Nick.
That's the reality, man. That's what the rest of the league's going to take each time national media runs it over and over and over again, like they did on Monday.
Like, if you get a chance to to kind of push Mahomes in the chest after an interception, and you accidentally throat punch him and get away with it, why wouldn't you? So, well, Brandon, Nick already pretty much answered your Garrett Wilson question, so
I preempted it.
And Zulu, no, Jaylen Watson not officially out for the year, but let's wait until the surgery is done. We'll see what happens then. Infopocalypse. When will we see Hunt under center for tush push with Leo pushing from behind on 3rd and 4th and 1 this season? Am I speaking it into existence? Would you like to see that, Nick?
I'm not expecting it personally. I think they like to have the element of run pass on every single play.
Yeah, and I don't know. I mean, I don't think it's necessarily that, I don't think Andy really thinks it's like a dirty play or anything, or thought that the Eagles were silly for running it or anything, but I just think that's the one thing he's probably not going to steal. He's not going to borrow that, because I think he just wants to go about it different ways, and he's probably a little concerned about, just people getting shoved and getting hurt too. So your mileage may vary, Nick, though. I can't say it for sure, but
yep, it might.
I would like some variation though of Leo and Kareem on the field for short yardage.
Lightning round.
Edmund? What's your opinion on the left tackle play? What have you seen from Wanye in the last couple of weeks?
I mean, we're only a week back in since the bye week, and they're just trying to keep this position stable where Mahomes can predict when he's going to have to move and how he's going to have to move based on Wanye. So if that's where they got to keep the stability right now, that's what they're going to. And then if they see something in practice where Kingsley gets to the level they're wanting, then maybe you see a rotation, or maybe you scheme in if there's an injury. But until then, I think you're going to see Wanye, and then we'll see, because some of the receivers, will see what receivers can beat press coverage in the weeks ahead. Otherwise, that left tackle problem may become a bigger issue than it is right now.
There you go. Yeah, I can't add too much to it. I co-sign Nick, so lightning round. Infopocalypse. I know Juju had knee problems. Does he have a history with hamstring issues? Could this be just a one-time deal, or career-long issues like Sammy Watkins? I did a quick search. I don't have any any extensive connection with Juju and hamstring injuries, so I don't think that this is anything. And the fact that the Chiefs were more than willing to let him play last week, I do want to ask some of the players and coaches tomorrow about the field conditions in San Francisco to see if there was, because we saw a lot of players slipping, Nick, and I know it's been my little observation of the week, and maybe I'm full of hooey, but I would be interested in just, if there was any factor there. And once again, it doesn't look like it's a long-term deal for Juju, but I'm not aware of any long-term issues. Are you?
No, I don't think
he's
so.
had with it, just the knees with.
Look, when guys are fast, when guys cut, when guys do stuff like that, hamstring issues are gonna happen from time to time.
Edmund's follow-up question on the left tackle, will Kingsley ever going to get another shot? I mean,
no,
eventually,
already answered it in the last one.
John, what if they went all in on a pass rusher? Just go all in on defense. I know cap may apply, but the heck isn't it? I mean, I have looked at this, Nick, and I mean, while I personally would have no problem with them getting an edge rusher, I think that's been one of the weaknesses going back to the offseason that they just never really got to address. I know that it's also they feel like numbers wise it's been a challenge they haven't been able to address. I'm not smart enough to find the solution, because if you look through, and this was another one of my deep dives and rabbit hole, Nick, about going through next gen stats. I mean, looking through, who's been the most productive pass rushers this year. I mean, it's all guys that you can't afford or aren't going anywhere. I mean, the Chiefs would just have to really find a diamond in the rough somewhere to say, okay, this is a guy that we think will fit our scheme, isn't playing, isn't getting much time, or hasn't been productive, but could fit here. I mean, I don't have the time to find that player. That's what Brett and his entire staff get, and maybe Cam Thomas is it. Maybe Cameron Thomas is going to be the diamond in the rough in the second half of the season. Who knows? But I just don't know if there's an easy solution for the edge rusher spot.
See what happens in the weeks ahead, Matt.
Brandon, Nick, what coverage is Mahomes struggling against the most this season, or is it just receivers aren't getting open?
Look, as I talk about, man, there's a certain amount of time he's got with the tackles and everything, and that's where he's trying to go through everything that he needs to as quickly as possible. And the other thing that I'll say, and then I gotta get moving, is that I think there's certain trust levels he has with certain guys, and when it comes to scheme, like there's certain things they're trying to attack. So like whenever you say what does he have the most trouble with coverage, it isn't that, in my opinion, it's not that simple. It's not like every time they play cover 3 they struggle with this. Well, no, because they're running like different option routes based off of it. And it's factored in with the pass rush. And so like there's certain things they're anticipating them to run, and they're manipulating the route combinations based off of it. And he's trying to see based on this, and this. So if the defense guesses right based on the formation, they're able to cover some of those things. And then the guys either have to option off of it, or the Chiefs have to pivot and plays ahead. But what the Chiefs try to do with the run games is try to get in favorable down and distances so that defenses, they kind of dictate what the defenses can run. So again, I understand the question. I get it, but I don't. It's never as simple as this specific coverage is what they're having struggles with. Plays are much more complex than that.
That it is. How far away is Omenihu? November-ish is still kind of the general report I'm getting. That wouldn't be surprised if he's obviously his window is opened at some point in November. Maybe his first game end of November, beginning of December, I think would be an ideal timeline for the Chiefs. I know Charles would like to be out there even sooner, but Chiefs will definitely try and give him as much time as possible to just make sure that he's 100% and ready to go and gets all the ramp up time that he needs. So we'll see, but you are getting close to Charles and Omenihu time. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Let's see. I guess MVS is not coming to Kansas City, Nick.
Oh, darn. I hope he enjoys New Orleans.
John, what do you think it would take for the Chiefs to drop Sky Moore? Tony gave them production and couldn't make the team. What's your verdict on Sky Moore this week, Nick?
I'm curious to see how many snaps he gets and go from there. I'm curious to see if they're willing to elevate guys up from the practice squad and give them some of those reps that Sky Moore's got, or if they keep running Sky Moore out there as a decoy to just run a route and try to use it to manipulate what they're actually wanting to attack, or if they want him to just be a glorified run blocker. I mean, that's where it's at. We'll see what they do, and we'll go from there.
I want you to know, Nick, I don't know if you noticed this. Mango did notice that you changed your background.
No.
Hey, observation. I'm just giving him observation points here. Let's see where we got here. We're looking for question marks. Sorry, everybody. Good Freddie Kitchen comment there. John would prefer Darius Slayton at wide receiver.
I mean, look, if they trade for him and everything, I know people keep attaching him because Kafka's there with the New York Giants and everything, and they think the scheme's similar and all that type of stuff. But I think it's an influence of what Dable does and what Kafka does, and Kafka executes a lot of what Dable's vision is, in my opinion. So I understand. I just don't think Slayton makes a big mark on what you're wanting at receiver, both short and long term.
Brian asked an interesting question. Does Carolina really care about Chiefs dominance? And, that in regard to, whether the Carolina would, care one way or the other about helping the Chiefs. I will say there's another factor involved with Carolina too, which is the Brandt Tillis connection. And that can go both ways because, having a former employee and one of your most trusted lieutenants in Carolina can be a door opener to at least, opening negotiations on a trade. However, it can also go the other way because there can also be the perception that, hey, if, some people might end up looking at the trade and then saying, oh, I see Brandt Tillis did a favor for his old buddies in Kansas City. And maybe even his bosses and new bosses in Carolina and coworkers might even think, depending on what the return is, might think. We've seen that go both ways. That sometimes, yes, it can grease the skids, but there can also be the situation where, hey, new guy in a new situation doesn't want to get involved in anything like that or be connected to it because if you don't get the return that maybe the fans or the organization wants, it'll be you just did a favor for your friends in Kansas City. You're still working for the Chiefs.
Well, the beauty for Brandt Tillis is he can hide behind Dan Morgan as a general manager if he has to on that one and say, I was just over here, ordering some more Post-its. Get out of here. We're doing a deep dive analysis of free agency next year. I know it's in terms of the rant that we talked about earlier. Here's the thing. Like, here's the part that people – okay. So imagine you work at a place and you have to worry about the owner's happiness. And you know what the owner is personality-wise, yes or no on that aspect of it. And we're just talking about normal business. So hypothetically, now we're going to talk about from the Panthers. If you have an owner who's not maybe the most stable in terms of steady ship and 5-year plans, 10-year plans, whatever, or has an overall vision and has overall patience and everything, then you want to do whatever you have to do to keep that owner happy and keep that owner, not thinking about how far away his investment is from being able to make him really happy versus just being happy that he owns a team and he gets called about it from time to time and has to answer questions about, yes, you can spend that money or no, you can't spend that money. So hypothetically take Deontay Johnson. Say something happened there and Deontay gets traded to a team that goes on to win a Super Bowl. And that owner gets to see that player playing in the Super Bowl. And then that owner starts asking questions about what did you get for that asset and why is that player playing in the Super Bowl and we are not. Then that makes an owner unhappy. Then that puts your paycheck in question. Then it puts your 401k in question. Then it puts some other stuff in question. So whatever you can do to make an owner happy and keep him thinking less about how far away you are versus telling him that, well, we're going to right this ship. We're going to right this ship. The more you can do that, the better. So again, sometimes people, here's the biggest problem. It's going to be a little miniature rant and I apologize. People think that every single owner and every single franchise and every single organization has the same passion for the franchise that they do, that they have the same competitiveness that they do, since they're in control and it's their money and everything. Some of those owners don't. Like some of those owners are okay with going 500. Some of those owners they make money off the franchise, and that's that. And hey, if it works out, that's cool. But if it doesn't, it's fine. It's a good talking point at some places. When they go out to their dinner parties and stuff like that, that's just the reality of some of it. So I think everybody thinks that everybody universally is on the same wavelength, and everything, and that's not the case sometimes. So I hope I've answered this. I doubt I have, but I'm just saying there's a lot of factors involved that not every owner cares about the culture. Not every owner is trying to put out the best franchise that can go win a Super Bowl.
This is true. I'm going to frame this question that's coming up in a very specific way because I just want to make sure we're talking about the same thing here. And I'm kind of curious about. I think I know how you would answer this, but I am not 100% sure. So
I guess we'll find out, won't we?
But Alex wants to know about trading 2 future Super Bowls with Mahomes for a 3-peat. So Nick, if I told you that there were 2 options that were gonna, one of them was going to happen. Your only 2 options: you win 2024 Super Bowl, or the Chiefs win the 25 and 26 Super Bowls. Which would you pick?
See, here's why I don't care. Just win as many Super Bowls. Like winning a 3-peat puts him at a level no other quarterbacks, most quarterbacks haven't been on. Like that's just another thing you add to the Hall of Fame resume. And that's something that argument wise you can claim, well, Brady never did, or no other, this team didn't do. And so like that puts the Chiefs franchise on rare air overall, and all those guys that are trying to get in the Hall of Fame, it helps every single one of them that's on that roster and has been on this entire run. So that's right now is what's most important. But after you get past this year, depending where they're at numbers count wise, that's the next thing that Mahomes is going to be chasing. He's going to be chasing the next one if he gets this one. If he doesn't get this one, they're really going to be chasing the next one. So,
yeah. See, I wasn't sure which way you would go, and I understand the not caring part, but I was curious because the part of me was, I think you would enjoy the history of getting the 3-peat and having that, but then I also know,
I'd love to witness it. Selfishly, love to witness it.
But I also know that you are a firm believer in 2 is more than 1.
Yes, it is. Number 6. I'm just saying, like, you're trying to figure out how to get closer to Brady, or how to distinguish yourself from Brady. And that's really what you're asking at the end of the day, question-wise. And whatever gets you to distinguish yourself from Brady is what matters.
Randy's got an existential question for us. Where's Kadarius Toney?
I'm pretty sure he's on the practice squad with the Browns.
Did he end up signing with the Browns? You're right, he did. He is still there. I completely blanked on him still being there. I knew he was there at one point. I just for some reason thought that he wasn't there anymore.
Don't worry, that'll be our next round of questions if they don't make a trade at the trade deadline.
He and Bailey Zappi are going to be, we'll lighten it up before the end of the season, I'm sure.
Fast friends.
Yeah, I mean, it's come up a couple of times. I'd not really heard about the Chris Olave thoughts until tonight, and I am 100% convinced that the Saints have zero interest in moving on from Chris Olave, but I could be wrong. But I guess we already asked that one. Sorry, John. I'm just blowing on since Nick already talked about Wanye and Kingsley and the future of that left tackle spot this year. Let's see what else. I mean, it's a little early. I mean, I suppose I should just go ahead and throw in a last call so people can start getting some questions in and, trying to get your last best stuff in here. But, hugs for Nick. Oh, dear Lord. I'm worried about who this might be. So what's wrong with Hunter Renfrow? Seems like a great replacement for Juju or Rashid.
The thing none of us know about is where he's at injury wise, health wise. That's the part that none of us know. NFL teams do. So, and they know what his number is if he is interested in come back in the league, and maybe he's not even interested in come back in the league. Maybe we'll just assume because he's out there that he wants to come back. Maybe he doesn't. Maybe he enjoys doing whatever he's doing with his life right now. Who knows?
Could all very well be the answer. And I mean, and I said this at the top of the show. I mean, I feel like the Chiefs had an open roster spot on the practice squad for a receiver. They chose to sign Cornell Powell of all the free agent possibilities. I mean, that tells me that there's not any other free agent possibility, not serious ones, that would consider a practice squad spot. And if that means that Hunter Renfrow or a Michael Thomas or somebody of that nature would only consider a 53 spot, well, that's not happening. I think you'd have to, those guys would have to understand you got to come be on the practice squad for a few weeks to see what's going on before we go anything too drastic. But I feel like signing Cornell Powell, to me, no knock against Cornell. I think it's just a sign that the Chiefs are telling us what they think of the free agent class of receivers that are out there.
Dude, just the amount of Kadarius Toney things we're getting in here now. My, how different things have changed in 2 months from people trying to run him out of here in August to like, what? Maybe they should bring Kadarius Toney back. Why? He's going to get hurt in like a couple weeks, and then you're going to be asking who the heck's the next receiver they're going to try to bring in. It's like we keep trying to repeat the same things over and over again.
Mac wants to know, why do you two think that L'Jarius Sneed is having a tough time with the Titans?
Because he's not in the Chiefs scheme anymore, and he had the knee issue before he left here, and the Titans were like, yeah, it's fine. We'll sign you anyways. So,
I mean, scheme's a big part of it. L'Jarius Sneed was an absolute perfect fit for what Steve Spagnuolo did. And I mean, from what I've seen and what I've heard from people in Tennessee, I don't think that they're disappointed. I don't think his PFF grades are as great as they were when they were in Kansas City. Maybe real, maybe not. I don't know. But I mean, I thought there was a decent chance that L'Jarius Sneed could be just as good as he was in Kansas City and still not be as good, because he was a perfect fit for what Steve Spagnuolo wanted him to do. He's never going to find a job like that in the NFL.
Bring up Randy at 748.
If that's the one, I think I almost was getting ready to do that. Let's see. There were which one?
The Peterson.
Peterson will not trade Bigsby.
Hey, Randy, let me tell you something. Doug, I don't think is long for Jacksonville, man. I think they're waiting for a couple more losses, and then they're going to bounce him. And then Trent Baalke, who's the general manager. Here's the other piece of the puzzle. This is rant time yet again. if there's one thing I teach you tonight, I hope this is it. The general manager normally has the ear to the owner, and the general manager will convince the owner that their plan is right and the head coach is the problem for self-preservation. So Trent Baalke's general manager of the Jaguars. If he's going to preserve himself and say that Doug is the problem, he will do that in a heartbeat. And then if he thinks he's got a future there, he may trade a handful of things so he can get the draft picks for the next head coach who he potentially gets to hire. So again, if there's one thing I want you to learn, it's that the general manager, unless the head coach has final say over everything, the general manager normally has the ear of the owner and tells them all these things. And if the owner's not locked in from a football perspective, they believe hook, line, and sinker everything that the general manager tells them. And then they go along with it until they finally realize, after so many head coaches, that general manager probably didn't know what he was talking about either. So there.
And the funny thing is that you and Randy are on the same page, because he also points out Jaguars have a Trent Baalke problem. And that's the thing that's amazing to me, and why I think that the Jaguars could trade Bigsby, because it's not up to Doug Peterson, it's up to Trent Baalke, and who knows what Baalke's going to do.
It's all a matter if Trent thinks he has more time there or not.
Trent is 100% convinced that at the end of the season, if anybody's going anywhere, it's Doug that's going somewhere, and he's going to still be there. And I think he's probably right, which is also another reason why the Jaguars are on our list of teams that don't know what my list of teams that don't know what they're doing. But it's just a big circle of life. I mean,
but to say Doug will not trade, Doug has no say in it. If Trent goes to Con and tells him, hey, I got great value for this running back, like we need to do this, I don't see Con standing in the way.
Brian has an interesting question I've wondered about. Where is Carlos Dunlap these days?
Didn't he have that restaurant that he's pretty big into?
That sounds very possible.
But also, isn't he like 36 now?
He is going to be 36 in February. So,
yeah.
I'm
pretty sure
did not play at all last year. So I guess a semi-retired restaurateur, maybe. I don't know what you'd call it.
Oh, dude, he was really, really excited about his restaurant before he left here.
There you go.
I'm just telling you, he was really, really pumped about that.
And as long as the restaurant hasn't been losing money yet, he probably doesn't need to come back into the league. So,
well,
even if not, he made enough money. He's going to be fine.
And here's the other kicker, guys. He accomplished the last thing he wanted to. He wanted to win a he wanted to win a championship. Like, missions accomplished. Literally on his Instagram bio, it says Super Bowl champion. So, like, he's won a national championship. He's won a Super Bowl championship. His body doesn't have to deal with the aches and pains anymore. He doesn't have to worry about any of that stuff, and he gets to cook food and do another passion of his. So
there you go. Daniel gets. I'm going to give Daniel points and negative points for this one. Just because I love the tease, Daniel. If I tease you, it's because I care. Got to ask about the Chiefs trade for the Giants, Jaylen Hyatt on a rookie deal, or Falcons, Kyle Pitts, also on a rookie deal. I have not heard anyone talk about the Kyle Pitts possibilities this year. So he bringing Kyle Pitts into the conversation feels full circle from the last couple of years. I mean, Jaylen Hyatt, I wouldn't have a huge problem with because you got team control, but that is not a fix for 2024. I mean, if Jaylen Hyatt did anything for you, I mean, great. He might be able to get you 128 yards the rest of the way.
So, spoiler alert: Jaylen Hyatt skill set is exactly is the same thing that Worthy's already running, and it's the same thing that McCole Hardman's backing up.
Yes.
So you're trading for a guy to either mix in with them or sit behind them.
Yes. And I mean, and the Atlanta Falcons are absolutely, completely, and totally, I think, committed to continuing to misuse Kyle Pitts. So,
here's the reality about Kyle Pitts. He's not an actual tight end. He didn't block. He didn't want to block. He's not interested in blocking. And I mean, he's an oversized wide receiver that plays tight end.
And he might just not have any interest in playing for the Falcons, but that would also be part of the problem because, you kind of want people interested in playing. So,
yeah. And the Falcons don't think they're out of it yet. So that's going to take a while longer.
I love the fact that everybody was really getting into our discussion about the franchises and who's the.
I don't know. Some people weren't. At 8 o'clock, I saw somebody on there saying, "Can you please talk about the Chiefs?" And I get it.
Oh man! Then somebody was saying my audio was terrible at 7:55. Am my audio still terrible, Nick?
No, your audio is perfectly fine. This is coming from somebody that's a veteran that has to understand how your audio sounds.
Oh, just imagine it could be worse. So
it could be, Matt, but it's not.
Okay, I have a short answer to this one, Pano. Would Belichick work as the OC for Andy? No.
Belichick's the DC. And Belichick is no, he's not going to work for Andy. He's going to go run his own show. And right now he's got a podcast and he's on Pat McAfee. He's on Manningcast. Bill's made himself very busy in the offseason and very visible. But I got a feeling Bill Belichick, if I had to pick a spot in a place right now, I feel like New York Giants is where he's – if he gets control of everything, I feel like New York Giants is kind of the number one spot right now.
It'd be a good spot for him. So – Brian, where is Mike Vrabel? Mike Vrabel, as I think, doing some TV work and just waiting for a spot to take over next year and go dominate somewhere.
Last time I remember, he's consulting for the Cleveland Browns.
Oh, there you go. Well,
but he will likely be a head coach somewhere else next year.
If that means that the Haslam family is listening to Mike Vrabel and listening to him say, "Yeah, you need to fire everyone." Hire me and let me go get my own GM, that would actually be a smart thing. But
yeah, I think Stefanski is the one that kind of helped make that happen. So I don't know if Mike would be willing to throw.
You got to give credit to Kevin Stefanski because you can't win your third Coach of the Year award without running everything into the ground the year before. So. I mean, he's on target to be your 2025 NFL Coach of the Year after he takes the Browns to a playoff spot and a 10-7 record, while Andy Reid will continue to not have any NFL Coach of the Year awards.
You know what award he's getting at the end of the year.
He's working on that Lombardi Trophy.
You know what award he's getting at the end of the year?
What's that?
It's called the only one that matters.
The only one that matters award.
Do you get rings? Do you get rings on your hands for winning Coach of the Year?
I don't think so.
No, Matt, you only get them for winning championships.
So. It's true. It's true. We get this question every once in a while. Sky to the practice squad and elevate Ross and Remigio. I think if you waive Sky Moore, I think somebody will take a chance on him. So I think if you waive Sky Moore, you were ending his time in Kansas City.
Agreed.
Brian didn't have a question, but says 160 people are watching that didn't hit the like button. I'm not going to call them traitors, Brian. That's just out of line. But if you are watching and you haven't hit the like button, It would be awesome if you did, and you would be an incredible person if you did.
All right, where do I hit the like button at? I'll do it. I haven't done it yet. Brian's calling me out right now. It's not cool.
Well, at least somebody's willing to stand up to you, Nick, and tell you no. You're like Jerry Jones.
Hold on. There, I just hit the like button. Here. Just there. Just I'll prove it. Hold on.
There you go.
How do I do this?
Nick has liked it. Have you hit the bell too? Because if you hit the bell, you'll get notifications every time that we've got new videos up here.
It says I'm already subscribed.
Well, then you have hit the like. So,
see, do I need to prove it? I'll share my screen right now to prove it if I have to. I just make sure I didn't have any tabs that were going to be work related that people didn't need to see.
I love the fact that Brian also wants to know when Carl Cheffers is working a Chiefs game.
I don't know yet. That's a good question. I need to look. The fact they've said that means it's probably this week.
Yeah, I haven't seen the officiating crew for this week.
Yeah, no, I've been busy today, so I haven't looked it up, but I'll check it out right now. Matt, you find the next question, I'll look it up right now.
Des, random question to you guys: has Mahomes passed Montana already?
I think one more championship gets in there. But I mean, he's done it in a much more, in my opinion, he's done it in a much more complicated era. Where I feel like him and Brady are kind of on their own level right now. I think if Mahomes gets one more, I think him and Brady are definitively on their own level now during the free agency era to have the level of dominance that they potentially would.
Yeah, and then you get the complicated question about where does Marino sit in and all fit in all of this with the fact that doesn't have the ring, but
2 was not a winner and 3 nobody remembers.
But man, this is going to be
no rings.
This is going to be this is mostly, well, it's partly because of his Chiefs tenure, but here was my complicated thing. I liked Joe Montana. I just didn't like the 49ers when I was a kid. So I'm gonna be partial to Montana in the 4. So until Patrick matches him, and then I'll say, okay, now you've passed him.
Sorry, I'm looking for Carl. They have Carl is doing the Titans-Lions game this week, so he will not be here. Carl has not. Yeah, I just realized Carl has not done a game this year.
He's not.
Chiefs get Adrian Hill. Close that out. That was confusing me. I saw the YouTube up, but it was frozen. So I saw our faces in real time, but frozen.
You might remember this off the top of your head, Nick. I always have to go through and count it. Darren's asking, how many guys on the current 53 were part of the 2019 Super Bowl? It is amazing. I mean, I agree. I was actually thinking about this exact same thing, Darren. It just is one of those things that comes across your mind every once in a while, just how much turnover that there is in the NFL. I mean, you'd be amazed how many people on the 53 weren't on last year's Super Bowl team. I mean, you think it's just a bunch of guys, but there's a huge amount of turnover every year. But there's only 5 or 6.
You ready for me to try it?
Yes.
Patrick Mahomes.
Yes, there's 1.
Travis Kelce.
2.
Chris Jones.
3.
Derek Nottie.
4.
James Winchester.
5.
Harrison Bucker.
6.
And then the final one, if I remember correctly, I think is McCole Hardman.
Yes, that would be all 7 that would be on that team. Yes.
Ta-da!
Yes. I'm trying to think
if Clyde wasn't until the next year.
Clyde wasn't until the next year. I'm trying to.
And that technically wasn't a Super Bowl win, but.
And I think that is correct. I can't remember anybody else that's that was around that was on that team.
Oh, Pennell would be the other one.
Thank you. Yeah, you're right.
The other one.
Yep. Forgot about the return of Mike Pennell. That's correct.
Because he wasn't here for the entire run, so that's why it trips
right.
up.
Yep, 100%. So 8 players, and 2 of them left and came back.
Mm-hmm.
So, gosh, there's some names on that team you just forget about.
Yep.
Forget LaShawn McCoy was on that team.
LaShawn McCoy forgets sometimes too. All right, Matt, where are we at on questions?
I was going down memory lane there for a second, so I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, we can snap you out of it.
So 8. There you go, Darren. 8 players. Let's see. John, will the Chiefs need another soft rebuild once they lose most of the 2022 draft class? Defense starters are almost half that draft class.
I think so. Here's kind of the reality of what I'm going to get at, and this is part of why I'm saying you need to hold on to your draft picks next year. You've got to start using next year's draft picks to brace for anybody you're potentially know you're not going to be able to pay in 2022 from that 2022 draft class or that 2022 editions. Like you're going to have to start drafting and developing them next year.
This is 100%. Yes, I completely agree. And
I do love John's question. Phenomenal question.
It is, because I mean, you're right. I mean, and now you've got, obviously, I think at least a couple of those guys from that class that you're hoping to keep beyond their rookie contracts.
Sure.
So and hey, franchise tag might get involved, and obviously you got a couple of 5th-year options. They're going to be able to keep the fun going a little bit longer too. But I mean, that's a pretty big class. That's got some pretty big pieces. So I think that's the right question to be asking. And
that is the perfect question to be asking how it would impact a trade in the next couple of weeks, depending on what value you give up.
Because most of that class is going to be in a contract year next year.
Mm-hmm.
So
John with the question of the night.
There you go.
By this cup of milk that I have.
Brought to you by... I know every once in a while I think if I were evil, Matt, that used AI for evil, I would try to do a bunch of Chiefs Digest promos and liners and everything, and mimicking great voices of the past. But then I realized I'm not unethical and wouldn't do that. But if I ever do get a sponsor, I would love to have the CBS sponsor voice. Be able to say, yes, the question of the night. Question of the night, brought to you by... Yeah.
You have my interest.
Brandon, is Guy one of the players Brett Veach wants to hold on to say he's my draft pick like Breeland Speaks was? Well, he walked away from Breeland Speaks.
Yeah, he walked away from
pretty early.
Yeah, he walked away from Breeland quick. I mean, you take somebody like John Dorsey. John Dorsey would hold on to that draft pick as long as he could. Lauren Duvernay Tardif. And give him a big Pro Bowl contract that they were never going to live up to. So, good times.
Good times. Nikki was checking in on our old friend Louis Rees-Zammit. I think he is still. I'm assuming he's still. I know he was in London with the team. That's
funny she brings it up, because Mick was asking me when we were in the sports department the other day about if he played over in London in the past 2 games. I was like, dude, I don't think he did. I don't remember him getting elevated.
I did not see him, and I thought for certain that was going to be something that ended up happening, that they would elevate him, but I don't believe that they did. I'm looking.
They didn't. So that's what, the whole purpose he went down there. They didn't do it. That sucks.
Yeah. Hey, if I was him, but obviously he's playing wide receiver now, which he thinks he'll be better at, and he was not going to be able to play wide receiver in Kansas City. I mean,
I don't know. He might now.
Well, there's that, but I mean, that's too hard. I mean, you can't, no offense to Lewis, but there's just simply no way on God's green earth that you can go from never playing football before to being a wide receiver on an Andy Reid offense. I mean, we're already talking about it being hard enough to bring in, someone who's been playing football all their life to be a wide receiver in an Andy Reid offense mid-season.
Matt, here's the reality I want you to accept. No matter how many times you say that statement about how hard it is being an Andy Reid offense, no matter how many times you ask the question at a press conference, people are not going to care. They're still going to ask, when is that receiver doing it? Why aren't they performing up to par? And why don't the Chiefs reduce the playbook to fit whatever that player can do? So I just need you to accept that. no matter what. Can you promise you'll do that for me?
I will accept it. All right, flat out. Would you make the trade for Cooper Kupp?
You ready?
I was even gonna do like a thumbs up or down in mine.
Oh, so you go ahead and do it your way. I'll do it my way right after. We
can do it at the same time. You want to do it?
No, you promise. I promise you don't. You don't.
All right, well,
I'm gonna do something different. All right, now here's mine. Heck nah, heck to the no. Am I gonna do that? Guy's had 5 ankle injuries since 2022. You know how that happens? Because of the wear and tear over time, and has had ankle surgery, and is currently dealing with a high ankle sprain. So, I'm like, come on, guys.
And 31 years old.
So I've been making over $20 million a year. So I get it.
You all are getting sport coffee Nick Jacobs right now. I just want you to know.
You're not. I actually haven't had one today.
What?
Yeah, dude. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna go. As soon as we're done, I'm gonna go eat my dinner, and I'm telling you, I will amp up again because I start lulling a little bit if I haven't eaten after a certain amount of time, and that's my bad, guys. I apologize. Okay.
Well,
sport coffee and eating get me up to a certain level of amped upness, so I can entertain you for 2 hours of the same 6 to 7 questions. I'm kidding.
All right.
Had great questions tonight.
You'll appreciate some of Daniel's here because I know there's names on this list that you like. Heard about multiple Packers receivers possible to trade for, including Romeo Doubs, Justin Watson, and I don't know if Justin. I don't know if they would let go of Justin Watson. What say you? And Dontavian Wicks. I mean, Romeo Doubs is the one that looks like could be available because things haven't been smooth sailing between Romeo and the Packers.
I don't. With where the Pack. All right, here's the thing you got to take into account. The NFC North right now, they may have 3 teams that go to the playoffs, but when they start playing each other, we'll see how that all goes. But here's the honest truth: the Lions are the best team in the NFC right now. As long as the Lions can continue down the road they're going, they're probably going to be playing in the NFC Championship, if not the Super Bowl. And they were my preseason pick, so that would make me happy if that's the case. Selfishly, it will. But you've got them. The Vikings are playing out of their minds right now. We'll see if a defensive coordinator can come up with a game plan that frustrates Sam Darnold at some point. But the Vikings are playing really well. And the Packers, they have a lot of turnovers. They have a good team, but Jordan Love will take some risk and throw into some tight windows and throw some stuff that ends up getting picked off. But yet they still somehow won against the Texans this past week. And part of that is because Nico Collins wasn't on the field for the Texans because they haven't been the same team since Nico Collins has been gone. Although they did get Mixon back, and that did help a little bit. But if they didn't have Mixon and not having Nico Collins, the Texans probably lose that game a little bit worse than people realize. So I don't think the Packers are going to do anything because they are right in the hunt right now. I think it wouldn't stun me if 3 teams from NFC North don't make the playoffs. I think it'll be Packers, Vikings, and Lions, and they're going to need every single one of those weapons to get to an NFC Conference Championship. And it wouldn't stun me if 2 NFC North teams played each other in the Conference Championship.
There you go. Couple of comments, and there was a couple of people. I mean, that were trying to name off the people who were still here from the 2019 Super Bowl team. Joe Thuney didn't come in until after the 2020 Super Bowl and the debacle in Tampa and the rebuild.
Yeah, he wasn't free until 2021.
And I mean, I think it's always going to be a little bit of a good Chiefs trivia question about who started left guard for the Chiefs in Super Bowl 54.
Which 2019, right?
Yep.
Can I guess it?
Yes, you can.
Was it? I know it's a favorite player of mine.
Yes.
Went by the name of Stefan Wisniewski.
Ding, ding, ding. Winner, chicken dinner for Nick Jacobs.
It's funny, I do have some chicken in my dinner tonight.
Oh, let's see. I tell you what. I mean, Rick. I know the wide. I'm not going to say that about the practice squad receivers. But question is, why have they not pulled up some of the practice squad receivers? And I think that's a legitimate question. Other than the Chiefs have been pretty committed to the 5 guys that they have. Now they're only down to 4, so they're going to have to make some elevations this week. I wouldn't be surprised if there's more than one elevation this week. But
yeah, I personally think there's going to be multiple. Yeah, I think they're going to have 2 elevations this week at wide receiver. See what they have. Oh, Alvin Kamara just got a new 2-year extension.
Oh, I know. I thought you already knew that. I alluded to that earlier. That was
it just popped up on my timeline.
I got suckered into tuning in to NFL Network at 6:00 because they said they had breaking news at the top of the hour, and was it going to be trade news? No, it was Alvin Kamara getting a 2-year extension because Mickey Loomis and the Saints are trying to keep the band back together.
So what that tells me, I wonder numbers wise if they're trying to create cap room for something. So that's the only reason you do that right now.
Brian has I think this is probably okay. Brian probably sums up in one question what I think is probably a very legitimate point to take, which is, can the Chiefs actually afford to trade draft capital for a wide receiver right now when they have all these things that they need to retool the team to try and keep things going in the future? I mean, let's face it. I think that you are talking about a little bit of you are mortgaging a bit of the future if you're going all in on a 3-peat with a wide receiver this year.
Yeah, depending on what type of receiver you're going, because like the biggest thing is, more than anything else, is, in my opinion, if you do trade for a receiver and if you use any of the day 1 or day 2 picks to do it, it's got to be a guy who's going to be here long term. Like that, that you're going to sign to a new contract and they're going to be here for 3 to 4 years, personally.
And that's the thing. I mean, if you are trading draft capital and it's for a player who is more than just, the next half season, I think that's a different conversation. But if you're, trading a 2nd or 3rd round pick, you are potentially trading something that you really need in 25, 26, 27, and 28 for half a season. And maybe if you 3-peat, maybe it's all worth it. But I'm not 100% convinced that, and I wouldn't frame it this way because I know Brett Veach is going to do everything in his power to try and 3-peat. I mean, you guys don't. I don't think anybody really understands how competitive Brett Veach is. I mean, Brett Veach is passionate about this team and he's passionate about winning. I mean, there's nobody I've seen that likes winning more than Brett does. So he's not going to do anything halfway in trying to win it. But I think he's also smart dude and just doesn't want to make a commitment that's really going to hurt their chances to win a Super Bowl in the future if it's not going to significantly enhance your chances of winning a Super Bowl now.
Matt, I don't disagree with you, sir. I really don't.
So there you go. I guess that's my final 2 cents of the night.
Nailed it.
No, Alex, we have not forgotten Jody Fortson. Jody Fortson is still a Chief, but he was, you know what? I think this is in reference to 2019 Chiefs, and he was on injured reserve that year. So there you go. We did forget Jody Fortson.
So did he play?
He did not play. He was on injured reserve.
Yeah.
So
that's how you forget about people, Alex, is they're not playing in the game.
But tell you, Jody Fortson's going to be an answer to a bunch of Chiefs trivia questions one day too.
Maybe. This Chiefs player.
Okay, let me see. I'm going back just to make sure that I haven't missed anything for last call because Nick needs to go eat his dinner. And even if it is, it's going to have to be a really, really good question because Nick needs to go eat his dinner. Any interest in Elijah Moore?
Sure. You're talking about question or in general?
Yes. Would you? Well, both. We'll just put the question up. Elijah Moore, a realistic target?
I get that he's cheap and everything, but when I watched this tape, I wasn't enamored with what I saw. I was like, I get why the Jets are willing to trade him to the Browns. Now, Cedric Tillman from the Browns, that's different. That one intrigues me. Cedric Tillman from the Browns intrigues me, but I don't think the Browns are giving him up.
Rick, we got no problem with the directness, so you're cool. I was just giving you a hard time.
What?
Brian,
what are we talking about now? What
this
drama?
This is a question we talked about, but I didn't put up on the screen because he said something not very nice about the practice squad receivers. So
okay.
It was just me being the moderator.
Okay.
You want to look into Hassan Reddick?
No. Let him enjoy his time. Let him enjoy his time with the Jets.
He's loving that time with the Jets.
Yeah, let him enjoy that. You want to get traded? He got traded. So enjoy your time there.
Yeah, you know what, Brandon? I'm going to let you have the last word here because I just think that's hysterical. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think they'll be getting him.
Don't think
I think Zadarius Smith will be moving, but I don't think Miles will.
Yeah, don't think that's an option. Nick, thank you once again for postponing your dinner until we could wrap up the marathon session. Thank you everybody for joining us tonight and putting up with my terrible audio for the first 40 minutes or so. I think I did an entire 41 as the mic a couple of weeks ago that way, and just unacceptable, Nick. I mean, I can't continue to. I mean, this kind of stuff that get you put on waivers. So I don't want that for you, Matt. I got to work on my game a little bit. Everybody, yes, if you haven't hit the like, be sure to do that. If you have already hit the like, but you haven't hit the bell to get reminded whenever we're going live or we have new episodes of 41 as the mic or anything from outside the locker room that's coming to you, you'll get notified. So make sure you hit the like and the bell, and you will make everybody happy. If you aren't following 41 is the mic on your preferred platform for a podcast, you should be doing that. I don't think there's anything else I've missed, Nick. So
no, I'm just hoping Saturday brings me my Lombardi.
Yes, I do too. Can I tell everybody what you got going on?
Sure, go ahead.
Saturday night is the Mid-America Emmy Awards, and our distinguished Nick Jacobs has 2 nominations. And we are going to be rooting for him very hard. 2 nominations for 2 different shows.
Yeah, I'm just hoping I tie.
It is in the same category. Yes. I mean, there's a lot of pressure here, Nick, because you're nominated twice against only one other person. So I
personally expect him to win.
We're definitely expecting an award, but I mean, I'm not expecting.
I'm thinking the worst.
I'm expecting the best, which is that yes, you are going to tie and just sweep everything.
Yeah, so, I'm talking about tie with myself.
That's what I'm talking about. Yeah. Yes, I want you to tie with yourself because all of your work is equally great.
So we'll see. We'll see how it works out. There'll be an Overland Park on Saturday night.
That's right. Congratulate.
So if you randomly see a victory gift pop up on Twitter afterwards, there will be a reason why. And then people will assume that I'm hinting at a Chiefs trade, because anything I tweet out, people think it's Chiefs related 24/7.
Well, I'm going to be monitoring the progress, so when you do win, I'll make sure everybody knows.
All right. Well, I wish you the best on that. Although I will say this, like I normally don't, I normally do this, but like I do enjoy the fact that like all 3 shows that I produce have now been nominated. I'm selfishly hoping to win for all 3 of them going forward. It's very rare for a Chiefs show, one of my Chiefs shows, to get nominated because I'm normally going up against the actual Chiefs organization in that category. This one's for sure I'm not. And they do phenomenal work over there. So
they do phenomenal work, and we're not nominated. So that says a lot about your work this year. So
I don't know. We'll see.
Well, it says a lot to me. So everybody, wish Nick good luck. Thank you all. Have a great night. Have a great week. We will see you next Sunday, sometime after the game. Chiefs Raiders. We'll get together and talk about it on 41 is the mic. Have a great week, everybody.
It's all things Chiefs right here. 41 is the mic, a Chiefs podcast on your home of the Chiefs. Listen now wherever you get your podcast.